How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new here, my name is Kevin, and basically on this channel we just break down different editing effects and editing techniques. So in today's video I'm going to be running through 3 different effects that you can pull off. Yeah, I just think they look pretty good. Also, before we jump in, all the project files and all the footage and stuff will be on my Patreon below. Without further ado, let's just jump into it, and yeah, I'm going to show you the footage that we're going to be using. So this is the app that I feel like I talk about probably once a video, and it's called Eagle. Basically, it's just one place for all your stuff. So I have the 3 effects here with all the footage in, and just organizes everything really neatly. So obviously the first effect is going to be using different models. Can't remember where I got these images from, probably just from some lookbook. Just a quick tip before we jump in, we're going to want to basically have 360 photos of the model, even like 5 photos just the model at different angles. So for example, this is the photo that I had from the website, and from that I basically went over to ChatGPT and yeah, basically put in the image of the model, had this man in the exact same position but have his back to the camera, and yeah, ChatGPT did a pretty good job. So just before you start this effect, just have a think about that, and yeah, that's basically all you need. So let's jump into it. So in After Effects, let's just create a 9:16 composition. I'm just going to call this effect 01. Sorry, I'll just bring that up again, and it's going to just be, let's just do 5 seconds long, 25 frames a second. Drag that into our comps here and put it into our main comp, and then under our images here, we're going to just drag and drop all those images in like so, and then we can select all those images and then drag them into our composition. So obviously, because there are different dimensions, because I've got some off ChatGPT, some off the website and stuff, we're gonna have to basically line all these up. So let's just scale out a bit, start with something like this. Right, so that's our first photo, and then I'm just going to bring down the opacity on this one, and I can hide all the other ones. And then I'm just gonna scale this up and basically try and match the positioning. Right, so I can select all these now, press T, and then just increase the opacity on all of them to 100, and let's just reveal them all. So what we're going to do is basically just go 1-2 frames in, or you can just hold Control and press your right arrow key, 2 frames in, Control Shift D, and then just delete. I'm going to select my top layer, then select our bottom layer, right click, and then do Keyframe Assistant and sequence these layers. Right, so now you're getting something like this super quick, and yeah, you're not going to see what's going on. So from here, we're going to just try to make these photos make a bit of sense. So from this one, I'm going to zoom them in a good bit, so I can just duplicate this, drag it under, and then let's bring down the opacity on this top one, and then we're just going to scale this bottom one in a good bit like this. Then just bring our opacity back up. I'm going to duplicate this top one again, and then put it the frame after. So it's going to go close, then back, then to the right, to like a 2.5 angle, and then to the back. So what we can do is, just to make the transition from this photo into this one a bit smoother, we can just come to this one, duplicate this, drag it under our number 4. We're just going to right click, transform, flip horizontally, so then it goes from bam, 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 and we can just drag this out a bit. Then it's going to transition into this guy here, and then we can duplicate this, do something similar where we zoom in, can duplicate this one again, and zoom out. Just bring down our opacity a bit just to match them up, and then just bring our opacity up. So now it's looking like this, still super quick, and you don't know what's going on. So what we're going to do is just right click, add in a new adjustment layer, and we can just select all this, and basically at around we're going to basically double the duration of all these clips that we made. So at around 2 seconds, we can just Control Shift D, sorry, and select all these now, and let's pre-compose these. We can call this master subject, and now we can start applying that morph effect to these. So what we can do is add in a time warp, and basically this is going to slow this composition down by 50%. So we want something at around 40, something like this, and we can just play through and see how this is looking. So you're seeing you're getting the morph, but it's just a bit rough at the moment. Just so we can see this loop, we can just bring our composition, we can trim it to here, so then it's just going to loop like this. Right, so now we just want to smooth out the edges and stuff here a bit, so we can just build from one image, and I'm just going to select correct luminance, and then on our block size we can increase this a lot, or a good bit, just to something that you like, and just makes that morph effect a bit smoother. Right, and we're getting something like that. Brilliant. So what we can do is just actually, before we do that, and we can just pre-compose this one more time and just keep it the same name. And the reason we do that is just so we're putting this time warp into its own layer, and yeah, now it's a lot cleaner. So we can call this master subject, duplicate it, and we can call this master subject small. And let's just scale this down and place it somewhere where we want. Something like there. So now these are about playing at the same time. We can just right click and just flip this, just so they're a bit offset. So we flip it horizontally. So now they're just going different directions. So on this bottom one, we're going to add in a colorama effect here. And obviously you can mess around with this as much as you want. There's a lot of different presets and stuff here already. But let's just pick one that doesn't have much stuff already on it. Something like this, right? So from here, let's just give this grayish color. Add in another wheel here, and I'm going to make it like an orange. Just give it like a kind of thermal effect. You can just drag this around. I'm going to add in another, make this like a blue. And then I want this to be white here. So then you're seeing you're kind of getting that thermal effect. Yeah, and you can play around with these a lot, and yeah, just get different kind of looks from it, and they all look pretty good, so it's kind of hard to mess that up. So let's just drag and drop in that overlay that I used. So, and we can just position this somewhere like this, and just rotate it by 90 degrees. Let's just place it underneath this for now. Scale it down a tiny bit, sorry. Right, so that's all fitting in there like so. Now we can just bring this on top, and we can just multiply this so that's coming through. And we can just add in an exposure on this smaller one, and we can just alt click the exposure here, and let's do like a wiggle to 7. See how that looks. That's way too much. Maybe like a 1 and a 2. Yeah, something like that. So like a 5 and a 0.2. And now we can just come down to this master subject, and let's just add in a new adjustment layer over this, and let's call this blur. Add in a directional blur on top. You can increase this a good bit like this, and we can change what direction we want. We're just going to add in a mask over this guy like this, just so it gets some of the edges. We can feather that out a good bit. Right, and that's giving like a nice bit of detail to his feet down here and the top of his hat. And then we can add in a chromatic aberration a bit, gives that bit on the edges. Let's just increase the distance to something, decrease the strength of it a tiny bit. Right, that's looking good like that. So now we can just add in some of those little text effects that we had on the side here. So we can just come up here, get a text. Let's just call this outfit. Can select the Control Alt Home and just scale this down a lot. Let's place this somewhere where you want. Right click, new text, and then add in a composition. You can just add in a display comp time on this. And that means when this plays, you're getting this. But what we can do is just control and click over on our time code over here. And then this is going to change the frames. And we can just scale that down like this. Then when it plays, it's playing how many frames. Nice. Leave that there. And we're going to add in some blur on this. So you can just add in Gaussian blur. Just blur that a tiny bit. And copy and paste that. Last thing is just to get a rounded mask and kind of just come up around this and just round off these edges a bit like that. Last thing that I had was just a paid plugin, and yeah, it's really good. Basically add that like data layer on top of your footage, and it's called Tracery. Basically it's just a click and play, and it just does all this data effect on top of your footage. So that is effect number 1 into number 2. Let's just come up and make a new composition. Let's call this effect 02. Right, 5 seconds is long enough, and we're just going to Control K just to come into our settings. I'm going to make this a 1920 by 1080, 25 frames per second. Let's just increase this to 8 and come in and get our footage. So it's basically just this girl walking and sitting on this telly. Adjust the length of this clip here a bit. Perfect. So we're going to just double click here and we're going to rotoscope her out. So just come to a frame that you like, and I'm going to just get my roto brush tool and just mask her out. Reduce the shadow a bit and then increase the feather, and just control and click either side just to make sure that the mask is working, and we can just freeze all that. So there's a few different ways you can kind of do this effect. There's a free plugin and it's called Split Scan, and yeah, basically it just copy and pastes the footage over and over again, but it doesn't have that kind of freeze frame effect which I was looking for. So this is the only other way I found out that you could pull it off, and to be honest, I think this looks a lot better and it gives you a bit more control as well. So yeah, that's why we're doing it this way. Right, so once we have that masked out, we can come back to our main comp, and you should have something like this. And what we're going to do is just Control N and just export this as a PNG sequence. Make sure your RGB and alpha channel is selected, press OK, and then just save that somewhere where you want. So that takes a bit of time, but once it's done, you're good to go. So we have this layer of her rotoscoped out. You can just drag and drop all those files in. So before we do that, we have to drag them in a certain way, because if we just drop them in here, they'll import as an image sequence, and we want all these layers in one by one. So yeah, we can come in here and let's just call this effect 01, drag these photos in here, and then let's make a new folder, effect 02, and we're gonna file, import multiple files, come over to where you have it saved. We can select Control A, select all these, and then say create composition, single composition. Right, so now we can drag and drop that comp in. You're gonna see basically all these files now are in here like so. So what we're gonna do is just come into here and we're gonna change the duration to, let's say, something like 6 seconds, like that. And now we can scale out, and let's just drag all these to around 6 seconds. And now we can just select our first layer and our bottom layer, and then we're just going to sequence these. And the more you sequence them, the bigger the gap is in between this effect. So something like that, you'll see you get this kind of effect here. But then when we have it overlaid on top of we have a rotoscope on top of her, this is the effect you get, which yeah, is exactly what we want. So what we can do now is duplicate that first layer, and we can call this base, and we're just going to delete that roto brush off that layer, so then she's walking in and all that stays like that. And the good thing about this is that we have a bit more flexibility now on how we can treat this kind of mad echoey layer. So what we can do is add in a directional blur, and if we want this to all kind of blend into one, we can really increase this directional blur, and then yeah, it kind of just gives that effect of they're all kind of merged. Now you get something like this. Amazing. So obviously a few little things that you can do to kind of take this to the next step. I'm going to just use my mix media plugin and just use the difference. And yeah, with one click, you can kind of see the look that we're getting. And yeah, that's effect number 2. Obviously, really simple to pull off. It's more just knowing how to do it. But yeah, I can think of 1,000 different ways you could use this. But yeah, I think that's really cool. So into our last effect here, and it's probably a tiny bit more practical. But yeah, let's just hop into it. So let's create effect 03. We can make this a bit longer. Let's make this like 12 seconds. And let's drag and drop in our footage that we're going to use. So, and yeah, it's just a slow zoom into a room. Let's just make this like 6 seconds. So Control Shift D, and then we can just delete that other side. And now, because this is in such slow motion, and I can already tell that the roto brush is going to have trouble here masking out this layer, we're just going to actually mask this by hand. So let's get our pen tool and come in and around this door frame. And what we can do is just invert this mask just so we can see a bit better what we're doing. Let's set a keyframe, and then we can just feather this out a tiny bit. Grand. So we're going to set a keyframe at the end, no, a keyframe at the start, and then we can just Control A on all of our mask, Control T, and then just set this where it should be, right? And now that's kind of worked perfectly. The pan is just worked out that way, and I think we just got a bit lucky there. So we can now duplicate this, and on this bottom one we can just put none. So now we have basically a layer inside of a layer. So I'm just going to give this a different color, and I can call this mask, and then I can call this base. So what we can do is just pre-compose this mask and just leave it the way it is. Let's just do the same for the base as well. And now we can just bring in some text. So I'm going to just call this, let's just say home. Control Alt and home, and let's scale this up a good bit. And let's just give this a color like that. Now if we put that in between the two layers, you kind of see the effect that we're getting. Obviously really simple, but let's just take it up to the next level by adding in some drop shadow and stuff on this text, and yeah, animating it a bit. So what we can do is maybe actually, because I'm seeing now that that mask, as good as we thought it was, isn't actually perfect. So let's come to the middle here and select both of these sides here, and we can just finesse this a tiny bit. All we're going to do now is just duplicate this mask, and we can call this shadow. Control space, and let's just add in a drop shadow, and we're going to just shadow only, and we can increase the softness here. And what we can do is just make the shadow a track matte of the text, and then re-enable the text here. And now we can kind of have a bit of a better idea of where we want this shadow to kind of affect. So you can see it's kind of slowly just showing there, which looks a lot better. Great. So now what we can do is animate this text a bit. So let's give this a position keyframe here, and we want it to kind of come in from the right here. Let's ease that. So it goes like that, and then it's gonna come out like this. So we can just, maybe let's just make this the same length, and just to add some more details, we can just add in another text layer here, and let's maybe Saturday. bring this underneath our home text. Maybe let's make this italic. And we can just link that now to our home. So that comes in like that. And on this, we can come down, animate, and we can do position and opacity. Let's just drag down our position a bit and put our opacity down to 0. Set an offset keyframe, and then we can just make this 100 here. And then here we can make it 0. So then it's coming up like this. And then we're just going to ease this by coming into advanced, ease low, bring it down to -100, and then ease high, sorry, -100, ease low 100. And you're getting that. And now we can just pre-compose these. Just make this same length. Let's pre-compose these guys. Let's call this text scene 1. We can just add a posterized time on this. Maybe bring it down to like 12. Right, that's looking good. We just need to make that shadow a track matte of that text again. Like that. And now what we can do is add in a new blur adjustment there. Let's just put in a fast box blur. Increase this a good bit. So let's make a mask just to kind of center the attention on the text here and that doorway. Bring down that a tiny bit like that. Let's add in another adjustment there and call this grain. And then add grain. Final output. Let's see, something like this. Let's bring down the intensity a tiny bit. And now we can add in a new, this color, and we can just add in a Lumetri color. Just make this image pop a bit more, and let's increase the exposure a tiny bit. And the last thing we can do is just bring in a flicker and just add in an exposure, bring it up a bit, and then Alt on it, and we can just do a wiggle, maybe like 5 and 0.8. Just going to reduce the animation a bit on our grain and bring down the opacity a tiny bit. And then we can maybe add in chromatic aberration on our color, and then there's like a dream kind of haziness here. And yeah, something like that. So, and then when you have all your layers turned on, you're gonna get something that looks like this. So those were the 3 effects. I hope you enjoyed the breakdown of them. There was a good bit in there, so I'd be super curious to see any of your guys' work using some of them. As I said, all the project files and stuff will be in the description below. And yeah, thanks for watching. Cheers.